good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for jumping on Inspire FM YouTube live show podcast, You, Me and a Cuppa Tea, here with my fabulous friend called Massum, and also our lovely guest, Haleema Ali, who we'll get back to. So please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, even if you have any questions or queries, email us on inspirefm.org, You, Me and a Cuppa Tea. Did I get that wrong?
That was so wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got that wrong, guys. Right. What is it?
Doesn't even matter. Man.
Okay, never
It's
mind.
just like-
Anyways, if you guys have...
It's in the description.
It's in the description. If you guys have any questions, please hit up the chat box on the YouTube live comment section. And the quote of the week today is, "The pen is mightier than the sword." And Massam even did a really cute thing where he actually made the sword a literal sword, which is really cute. I appreciate it, Massam. Thank you. All right, have I missed anything? No.
No, we're good.
Awesome, thank you. Brilliant. So, this is Haleema. Hello, Haleema.
Hi.
Welcome to Inspire FM YouTube Live, our podcast, You, Me and a Cuppa Tea. Hope you feel comfortable.
Yep.
Hope you got your tea.
Yep.
Hope
And it was
there's
made for me as well.
100%.
Of course.
Got a variety of biscuits here. Feel free to jump on our... if you have any questions on the articles or any thoughts, feel free to jump on it.
Okay.
Haleema, could you have your mic a bit closer to yourself? Sorry.
Sorry.
It's got a narrow pickup point.
All
We
right.
always say this to all of our guests, you know that. it's just like,
If you guys ever
It's
go on
natural
to do like a radio show for anyone else, you should definitely, that is the number one tip I would always give anyone. Just the pickup points on the mic is always really important to remember. So Haleema describes herself as a artistic social activist,
Yep.
which is pretty cool. I am a lazyivist. I'm really lazy. I wouldn't really go about doing those social activists too hard, but I still love helping my community where I can. So, massive man.
hello, man.
Go for it. Would you have any questions for Haleema? Haleema, do you have any questions for us?
Did you forget the order of the...
No.
What?
I'm just...
Oh, so how's your week been? Are you talking about small talk?
yes.
I'm out of...
Yeah,
you know what?
man.
We're just not on the same wavelength today, Ash, man.
What can I say, man? Get on my level,
You're
bro.
just not reading each other's minds lately.
I know.
But yeah, how's your week been, Haleema?
My week's been good, thank you. But
That's
yours?
pretty good. It's been alright, A lot of going to London recently.
Have you?
Too much traveling, yeah.
That's what
Sleep
sleep deprived, bro.
meet too many people and it just takes a lot of energy out.
Oh.
But yeah, so so let's jump into the articles, yeah?
Okay, yeah. Let's jump into articles and then we'll get into the topic of the day.
Awesome. So do you want to start off?
Okay, so the first article is to do with the Democratic Republic of Congo. I'm going to just abbreviate it to the Congo, which is located in the African continent. Africa is a continent for a lot of people who don't actually know that. So what's happened is the Congo actually have created their 5th national park, which is called the Ogua Leketi National Park. And that is mixed with another park which is next to Gabon, which is called the Bateke Plateau National Park. And
All of that, it's a Zimbabwe accent. It's just
yeah.
coming out.
Thank you, man. And those 2 national parks combined together create the Ogua Lekete National Park. And what's really cool about this park is it's 2,120 square miles. Yeah, square miles. Covers 2,120 square miles. And it actually protects several endangered species like the mainland chimpanzee, the lowland gorilla, the forest buffalo, the forest elephant, forest buffalo, red river hog, and loads of other endangered species of plants that can only be found in Central Africa. And also they protect a large variety of birds. So the way the park was actually created was many loggers actually came along and actually started hacking at the trees and killing and chopping down the trees, and then from there the Democratic Republic of Congo as well as Gabon came together and thought, hey guys, what we need to do, we need to create a national park to protect these areas. And what's really beautiful as well is they actually bought and involved in the local communities that live in these actual parks themselves. And what that means is, bring the mic closer, okay, cool. And what that means is that these endangered animals are protected, and most of the time when people create national parks or governments create national parks, they actually forget about the community, and they actually kind of, what happens is they include the villagers inside the park, and their traditional traditional cultural like areas within the park gets affected, and there's like conflict of interest, so on and so forth. But it's really nice that the Congo actually included these people, meaning that certain areas were protected. Certain areas aren't going to be included in national parks, such as traditional places where they go to pray, so on and so forth. Overall, though, it's brilliant because it helps the economy within the park, because it brings loads of scientists, also protects loads of species of animals, which our children can hopefully go to Africa one day, or the Congo, and actually look at these beautiful rare animals that are dying slowly. But it's positive because they're being saved.
Yeah, exactly. That's quite good. I think the fact that they've got a lot of different habitats as well.
Yeah.
Definitely helps.
It's crazy, man. Like, it's like loads of different types of savannas, canopies, rivers just being protected. Thick forest as well.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Cool, man.
Our next article is about this former homeless man who brought internet access to the Bronx. So what he sort of found out was that the poorer states in the United States have a lower internet access, and he thought if you could improve the internet accessibility to educational resources, financial resources, and your health resources, what you could do is improve the economic state of that area. So what he decided to do in 2015 was to create a broadband company called NetYour, which was inspired from him overhearing a girl who said that she couldn't do her homework because she couldn't have access to the internet. So then, as he was starting to start this up purely for non-profit, because what he done was provide free internet access to all low-income resident families of the Bronx, so just that area. And then what he managed to do was increase the accessibility by 50%, I think. And that's really good because internet access is actually really important for rural areas as well as urban areas, because obviously, like us in Luton, we can use the internet for a plethora of things, whether it be pleasure, entertainment, work, healthcare, education, whereas in the more rural areas they can actually use it to improve their agriculture. So what they found out was a lot of Egyptian farmers, they tend to use internet access to improve their crops, because they can use existing crop data to change their way that they grow their plants, and then actually improve the
Cultivation.
the cultivation. And what's really interesting is as well is that in the places in Africa where there's more internet access, there's actually more prosperity there as well. So I think it's really good that he's trying to sort of get America all into the sort of internet age, because that will help people thrive in the economy, because having internet skills is definitely something that we need in this changing service economy. And I think it's definitely something that we should all work towards.
Cool. Awesome, man. So the last article is about a Buddhist who actually went to a poker game and actually won 600k, and this was in the Bahamas. So he was a Canadian Buddhist. He went to the Bahamas, won 600k, and then gave it all to charity. And his name was Scott Wellenbach. I don't know how to say it. It's a CH. And yeah, so what's really weird is he is Buddhist, but he went and he's got a kind of like, in the article he talks about how he's kind of got this addiction to gambling, but the way he acknowledges that, but the way he deals with it is because of his meditation, his mindfulness. He knows when to stop, and he's really calm, and he's not really addicted to the feeling. So the way he kind of rationalizes it, as Massim was telling me, was he actually gives the money to charity so he doesn't feel bad, and he makes sure the charities that he gives it to, he can see the direct impact that money is bringing. So he donated to charities like Doctors Without Borders, Oxfam. So those are the two charities that I spoke about in the article. But I found that really interesting. It's really weird. I don't really know what to say overall, but it's interesting that someone, he's kind of balancing. What's really cool is he's trying to balance his addiction while also trying to bring good to the world in a weird way, which is really wacky. I would find that very difficult to do. But yeah, man, what are your thoughts?
I think it's sort of, when it comes to gambling, I think that's an ethical dilemma in itself, because no one really, it's a big grey zone, because if you're enjoying it and you're not harming anyone except yourself, do we have a right to sort of look down upon you for doing that? It's the same way we look at alcoholism or drug use. And then on the other side, what you could say is that he's helping the communities by using this as a means. So does the action justify the ends?
Well, in this case, it kind of looks like it does.
debatable. I mean, it's definitely up there for debate. I mean,
What are your thoughts?
I find it very strange, and it actually just reminded me of something that, again, it's going to be a bit controversial to say, but when it comes to interest in Islam, for example,
Okay, yeah.
so Muslims believe, that interest or usury, I don't know how to pronounce it, is haram, so it's forbidden. But a lot of people in this day and age, what they end up doing is taking interest, and then saying, okay, we'll just give it to charity. It's just reminding me of that kind of concept. When there are always alternatives. So like even like Lloyd's, like they have like lots of.
I think they're called Sharia accounts.
Sharia accounts. Yes, lots of companies end up doing that, and then
Really?
there's an alternative that you can have, but then
Doesn't it come by interest anyway?
that's
No,
obviously
it's-
the other debate.
Wait, what do you mean by it comes by interest?
Because it's like about like the changing of hands in money. All money has been, in a way, has been touched by interest. So if banks borrow money from other banks,
Yeah.
and so
That's about-
but that bank uses that money, and that money that they're borrowing from the other bank has been touched by interest. So the idea is,
So
even in the
basically,
Quran-
everyone just don't use banks. Just keep your money in your
exactly, be like Mr. Krabs in SpongeBob, where he
Yeah, of
so
course,
hides all that money in his mattress.
house. That's what you gotta do.
But yeah, that's another controversial. That's another
Yeah,
story.
but
in
it's
itself.
just sort of like laundering your money, isn't it? Just to make it clean by getting your winnings from the casino and then just putting it
Giving
to
it-
charity. Yeah, that means it cancels out. It's a
Do you think it
sticky one.
cancels out the bad of the gambling?
You know what? That's for you guys to think about.
Right in the comments.
Yeah. But yeah, so Haleema, so 22 Seconds to Murder,
Yeah.
could you give us a bit of a sort of overview of what that campaign is?
Okay, so yeah, I'm doing a campaign called 22 Seconds for Murder, 22 Seconds to Murder. So you can find that on social media with hashtag 22 Seconds to Murder. And it is a knife crime project that I'm holding in Luton. And I'm actually hosting the event at Luton Sixth Form College on 18th of February. So that is the first Monday of half term. And what that event actually entails is using art as a sort of medium for social change. And using, when I say art,
It's cool.
Sorry.
when I say art, it could be, people creating artwork, like whether it's like a painting. It could also be spoken word artists.
Okay.
It could be like musicians, rappers, singers, that kind of thing. Or even if someone wants to do a performance, like if someone's good at drama, theatre, for example. And I thought I'd do it in that way to engage young people. A lot of the time, they might feel that they're kind of missed out from these conversations that involve them. So I wanted to kind of combat that by doing it in an engaging way. So it will still have the discussions and so on, but I want to sort of approach this hard-hitting topic in a sort of unique way by doing, fusing a few different things together. And even just the title itself, it's quite a hard-hitting title.
100%. Like when
Could
you
you,
hear
yeah, could you sort of like
Explain what the
explain
title,
is? Yeah.
So there was a boy who sadly died last year, and his name was Azan John Kaleem. Some people know him as AJ. So he was only 18, and he actually his attack was recorded and on CCTV, I believe, and it took place over the space of 22 seconds.
Damn.
Yeah, and I spoke to his mother about it, and it's just to kind of have that idea in your head where just in that short space of time that something so drastic can happen.
Definitely.
So what I thought I'd do was sort of pose a question just in the members of the public. If you had 22 seconds to live, what would you do? And I had some funny remarks by certain people saying, they might eat chocolate, for example.
100%.
Whereas I had some more sort of spiritual, philosophical kind of remark, like it might be that someone who's religious might pray. Some people who might say goodbye to their family if they knew that they were going to die and they had that chance. So there's a lot of things that people kind of put together that they said they would do this if they had the chance. So yeah, that's the idea behind the campaign. So that's live on social media at the moment. So if you want to post a video, or if you want to, if you're a bit camera shy, you can do it. Just write something in. So
100%.
that's the idea.
That's really cool. So guys, definitely what would you guys do in 22 seconds? If you knew that you had 22 seconds to live, what would you guys do? Write that down in the comment below. So we'd really appreciate that. See what you guys would do in 22 seconds before you die. Death. Oh God. So the topic today as we just basically discussed, is talking about knife crime and bringing knife crime awareness and how what we can do and the solutions that we can do to bring awareness about the issue that's kind of taking over the country right now. And it's been happening since 2013, 2014 now. I remember the last time I remembered that knife crime was on the grow was since 2014. So it's been happening for a really long time. So, yeah, damn. That's crazy. It's crazy. Like,
So
crazy.
I suppose I'd like to ask you, how do you think arts is going to be an effective solution for sort of what? How do you plan to actually combat knife crime? Like, what sort of solutions have you thought of?
So that's what the event is for, really, to actually bring together both young people and ideally their parents as well, and just members of the community in general, whether it's like the organisations and so on that deal with this issue, to come together and have a sort of holistic approach to this. You know, start speaking, expressing their thoughts in an artistic way, and have that conversation as to what they think are the causes and what they think the solutions are, because it's not a sort of one size fits all type of issue.
Definitely.
There's lots and lots of issues.
What do you think was the biggest sort of cause, especially in like the younger community? What do you think is the biggest cause of knife crime?
I think we can't pinpoint it to just one cause, to be honest.
Of course.
But
what, like a few?
some of the issues I would say like are socioeconomic issues, and like let's say the lack of youth services, for example. If you're having communities where the youth services are being cut, a lot of those young people will end up finding their sort of family, in a sense, or that kind of community feel on the streets. If that ends up happening, they might get in with the wrong crowds. It could be gang related, for example. But the thing is, it's not always gang related. A lot of the time it might be, for protection, and you hear that a lot. And, you've kind of gone away from, let's do martial arts, to learn self-defense, to let's carry a knife. That's not the approach that, the young people should be kind of going towards these days. And personally, like, I used to teach in a pupil referral unit, so what the kids call behaviour schools. And you see, like, a lot of it was down to the upbringing. So some of them might have come from, they came from really bad backgrounds, essentially. And, some might have been going through mental health problems. Again, that's another issue where, those services are lacking to actually help students with these kind of problems. It could be mental health, it could be disabilities, SEN, for example. And they're sort of shunned by their schools. They might be, like, kicked out of school, end up going to a PRU. And then you see, when you find out who their friends are, it's, people on the streets. And they have this sort of lack of trust with authority as well, authority figures, but also then adults in general as well. So they end up hating the police, they end up hating adults, hating the teachers, and it ends up sort of going down this spiral. And yeah, it's having a very bad effect on the community and on young people. And, there's a lot of people, like, families, for example, who are saying, they're scared, especially of their sons, like, going out. And, what if something happens?
100%.
Yeah.
I feel that completely. Like, I've never really had a liking towards authority. I've never really liked school or authority in any way. But I've always felt that I had to kind of listen to it, because I think I have a certain level of attachment to society. Well, the opinions of my family members.
Okay.
But I think it does. I think one cause it may be because one cause that leads to knife crime, is if those individual boys don't feel like they can have a trust, or they don't really value their family members' opinions as greatly, even though they may love them, they don't value the opinion, if that makes sense. So they're not worrying about how they're viewed by other society, how they're viewed by their parents, or how they're viewed by their brothers or sisters. They may be more inclined to going down that path. That may be a cause, because for me personally, I wouldn't, even though I don't like those people and I have friends that are associated with that kind of life to an extent, I wouldn't personally make that choice myself, because I do think about, okay, how would my brother view me, or how would my mother view me like this? So I think that's definitely a factor.
Yeah, because I remember reading watching a documentary about knife crime. And a lot of the times what they see is these young boys, they sort of want approval and sort of the clout. They sort of get that from other boys older than them who are part of these gangs, and they sort of look up to them as stronger role models, and they trust them more. And it's all about the authority. Which authority do you trust? I feel like sometimes the education and the justice system lets young people down. And I think that's what makes them lose trust in the teachers and police. And when they see that, they don't trust them, but they see these other guys who do go out of their way for them and who do help them out, they are more inclined to be attached to them, especially when they're younger, because it might be due to a lack of role models in the house. Because I remember reading this stat where if people who are without fathers tend to have an increased likelihood of being involved in knife crime and in gang crime. So if they don't have that sort of male role model in their own home, they find it elsewhere, and usually it's not the best place.
I'm glad you touched on the role model thing, because that is a key, major issue in this. We've actually seen in Scotland what they've done is actually they've taken really positive steps in sort of combating gangs and knife crime. And one of the things that they've actually implemented is try to have mentoring for young boys especially, and I find like that is something that actually does help. Like mentoring, yeah. Cool. Even my old job was actually with the Princess Trust, so they're large youth charity, and we ran mentoring programs, and you find like especially when it comes to what we said was relatable role models, so it was people who sort of looked like them as well. So let's say if you have a Bengali girl in East London, so that was like one of the schools that we targeted. That sort of if we have a female Muslim hijabi, for example, who is as a mentor, as a role model for that girl, you see like such a change in them, and they have something to aspire to. So I think that's really important for young people in general, like whether it's girls or boys, to have those role models. But especially when it comes to if boys are sort of inclined, if they're going down that route of drugs, gangs, and so on, to have like positive role models. But it's not actually just an issue with boys. So what we're finding now is a lot of young girls are actually being roped into this, and the way it's happening is they're basically being given, let's say, whether it's knives or drugs, to hide.
I remember.
You might have heard of this.
That, yeah.
And it's a lot. It might be like, it might be the boyfriend or a friend, and so on. And them say like, if the cops are coming, for example, stashing like, they won't suspect you're a girl.
Yeah, 100%.
And that kind of mentality. We need to sort of change the mindset of young people, and in general, it's not just it's just a boy, it's just a male issue.
Yeah, 100%. And do you know what's really crazy is it's not to do with knife crime itself, but it's as if because everything's being cut. I was reading this recent BBC article on how a lot of young people are just in their cars, smoking cannabis and just chilling and playing music really loudly. And this also contributes to knife crime in a weird way, because a lot more young people doing nothing, being bored, smoking cannabis, and then just kind of going out. I'm not associating cannabis with knife crime. Just saying
boredom. You mean?
The boredom, but those two paths kind of cross, if that makes sense to an extent. And people go into that knife crime, but I think there needs to be a sense of responsibility. I feel like these mentors do bring responsibility, and I think when we have responsibility for ourselves, it's like also like as a young man myself, I kind of think to myself, I need to go learn MMA, or I need to learn boxing, which is much more productive, or archery, which would be productive, but I have to pay for that, and that's like I wouldn't want to go do that. So I'd rather just sit in my park and do nothing and just like make noise and bother people. That's what a natural. That's how I think as an 11-year-old.
So I think then it's down to funding, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
So then that's more like, let's say on a political level, whether you want to lobby, get involved with campaigns, be a social activist, whatever you want to call yourself, but just doing something where you're sort of rallying the community together, and trying to get some change within the society. I think there's a lot of apathy as well, and that sort of feeling of nothing's going to change. I always live by this. There's a quote. You might be able to correct me on the exact wordings of the quote.
You gotta say it.
It's something along the lines of God does not change the condition of a man until he changes the condition of what
himself.
No, God does not change the condition of a society until he changes the condition of what's inside himself. Something along those lines.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
Is it sort of like you cannot change society unless you change within yourself?
So each person, as an individual, needs to change.
Is this like from the Quran?
I believe it's either Quran or Hadith.
Okay. I think the Hadith went across the lines of God answers the prayers of the man that tries to change the conditions of himself. So you can pray for your condition to be changed, but if you don't make an active decision to change your condition yourself, that prayer won't fully be truly be fulfilled. So it's like you want to learn how to drive a car. Don't just sit around at home praying that you can learn how to drive a car. Actually go out of your way to book lessons and learn how to drive a car, and then from there your prayer will be answered by
My
Allah
mum will be
subhanahu wa ta'ala.
laughing at that because I'm 25 now and I only just started learning to drive.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
it's
scared
like-
my whole life.
Everyone starts somewhere.
Yeah, you gotta start somewhere.
All right.
So
But yeah, so just quick recap. So what we found is some really interesting points. So thank you all for watching so far. It's you, me, and a Cuppa Tea. Remember to follow us on all the socials. So Inspire FM Luton for Instagram, and then on YouTube, of course. Make sure you share this video with your mates. I think this is a really serious and relevant topic, especially in Luton. So this is something that definitely will benefit a lot of people in your sort of friend circles. Thank you so much, Haleema, for taking
Thank you.
taking that taxi here, and
oh god, yeah.
even when your back's in, we appreciate everything that
Thank
you've
you.
done. And so make sure to answer the question of if you had 22 seconds to live, what would you do?
What would you do, Massam?
Well, it would definitely be so I was the person who would talk about the cake. I was the one who's like,
It was chocolate, I'm sure.
yeah,
was
yeah. I
it?
just wanted to eat a chocolate cake, because I kept I have it, but it's like inside me I was like, no, it's too many calories, it's too much sugar, you shouldn't do it. But then if I've got 22
Give it to
seconds left in
gluttony.
it, I might as well do it.
Yeah.
And so there's the whole sort of YOLO aspect of if you're gonna appreciate the last 22 seconds of your life, I think it should be doing something that you'd won't regret. So
That's it.
food is the one. But yeah, so let us know for that, and thanks for that. So
I want
going
to
back
ask.
you, what do you want
I
to
want to ask both of you.
Mhm.
Whichever order you guys answer in. What would you say? Why would you say young men or young people who get involved into knife crime? Why do you guys think they feel the need to carry a knife with them? What are your thoughts on that? Because I've always wondered what your opinions on it were. Well, both of your opinions. Because why would someone need to carry a knife? Why do you feel some people feel like they need to carry a knife? What
think
causes
this
that?
is Sort of the same argument for gun. It's
We're
protection.
not in America right now.
Yeah,
I want to
so-
talk about knife crime solely. I don't want to go into gun
I
crime.
well, it's all about protection. I'd say is a big part of it, and a lot of people feel as if they need a knife because so many other people carry knives. So the best way to protect yourself is to have a knife as well. And I saw it in the documentary as well. It was like a lot of these sort of people get involved in gang crimes would much rather do things one-on-one in a fist fight and have that integrity, but due to the fact that they can't trust each other, so
Trust.
it's sort of like when you have a knife, you're more at ease.
So
Because a lot of people fear for their lives, especially people in the gangs.
could you say then? Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Because could you say then a realistic solution could be to bring that trust amongst criminals back up again in regards to that honor, like where I'm not gonna bring a knife, but we're gonna have this fight still, and it's gonna be a one-on-one fist fight. That increases the amount of fighting. It doesn't solve the conflict, but it reduces the amount of people that die out there. But it will definitely increase the amount of black eyes out there. But I would feel like that's a solution in a weird way. It's not ethical, but
It's a solution, but I don't think it'll be effective. Because at the end of the day, criminals aren't really the trustworthy type. So
I would say criminality is like depends. It
I mean,
depends.
if you're thinking of like,
It depends how because
I mean, if you're
from a
thinking of
sociological
Al Capone and the Godfather, maybe they might have some respect.
yeah exactly.
But then
like,
your petty knife crime, petty thug wouldn't really. I mean, if they could win by knowing you don't have a knife on you, they'd probably take the jump on. the solution.
fair play. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
Instead of just fighting, would you say like learning martial arts, for example, would be
Yeah, I
a
think
more
self.
positive,
I'm
or self-defense? You
Yeah.
know?
yeah, big supporter of self-defense. I think everyone should learn at least one martial art and learn how to fight.
Fair play. No, because I feel like the reason why these people use knives is because they don't know how to solve their own conflicts.
Mm.
So like martial art is definitely a really cool way of doing it, but like, who solves that beef that exists? Do you know where I'm coming from?
I know, but yeah,
Because
well,
that's where like the knife because you get angry and you don't know what to do, and when you're angry you don't thinking straight, so you just pull out the knife and you stab someone.
then that's an issue, then, isn't it?
That is an issue.
Anger
The
is
anger is an
You
issue.
know, and I think that needs to be resolved. And obviously, like we've covered a few things where it's come to like family life, or where it's the society or funding, lack of
Mhm.
youth services and so on, or that role model and mentors and so on. If they had people from a young age sort of teaching them, like, when it comes to morals, what's right and wrong, how to manage their anger, if we, it's things that are sort of tackled at that young age, and then they sort of grow up with that mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But wouldn't you say that, I mean, from what I've seen, from the data I've seen, a lot of the perpetrators and victims of knife crime are young. They're from like 11 onwards.
They're very young, I know.
Yeah,
And
so
that's what's
crazy.
scary. That's
That's
what's scary,
crazy,
isn't it?
man.
So, I mean,
They're 11 under.
yeah, so to say, like, I mean, I definitely understand your argument for
Mm.
teaching them at a young age, but they're already at that young age and doing that. So how do we attack it in a more immediate sort of solution, if you know what I mean? Like, how can we go there now to these young boys and say, you have anger,
Mhm.
and let's resolve that maturely? How do you go about? What
I
sort of
really
things?
think, like, if there was sort of funding to go into the schools and teach them methods, when it could be martial arts, could be boxing, it could be
Mhm.
even things like yoga have actually helped, and things that actually, there's a lot of these young people that are actually suffering mental health problems,
Mm.
so
Mhm.
it could be depression and so on, and they're sort of taking that out in the wrong way.
Mhm.
So if there was sort of funding or initiatives and so on in schools
Mhm.
to do that, but the thing that we find in a lot of schools is those students are the ones, they're not getting the help, and in fact
Mm.
they're actually the ones being shunned away, so they're the
Mm.
ones that end up being kicked out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And then they end up in like I said before, like a
People
people
referral.
referral unit, and
Mm.
then that's like the start of the cycle. So I think it needs to start, like teaching, for example, is like such a major it's one of the best jobs you can do, but it's a very big responsibility.
100%.
I've been in education for several years now, and you see, like, if there's a good teacher, they can actually make an impact. And
Mm.
I think it does need to start at that level in schools. It needs to be in the homes. There's a lot of things that can be done, but the young people sort of saying themselves, like, okay, it's for protection and things like that. If they knew facts, like, there's a fact about if you carry a knife, you're actually more likely to get stabbed. So that is actually a fact.
So is that because I'm assuming they don't get stabbed by their own knives?
Well, I think it's the whole sort of
Notion,
thing.
because
It's like people who are on motorcycles are more likely to get into accidents because the people who ride motorcycles are more likely to be risk averse. I mean, like, more dangerous type.
okay, no, because
Maybe
you're not gonna, unless, like, because the assumption in here is that other people know that you're carrying a knife. That's why they're more likely to be at risk, because knife on knife crime, I'm assuming it's like that. Because it wouldn't make sense for someone people who carry their own knives to get stabbed by their own
Oh,
knives.
maybe they fell and then it's just like, whoops. Could be
God,
like-
that's like saying, like, that's scary. That's kind of scary, because you could be walking on a
No,
pavement
it's
and you could
definitely-
legit
it's
just
definitely-
fall
it definitely could
and you'd
happen.
be dead.
Definitely could happen.
Yeah, no, 100%. But the
Well,
likelihood is
I don't
that
know
they're
the
in,
stats.
they're in conflict. But okay, so going back to your 22 seconds event that's occurring in Luton Sixth Form College on the 18th of February 2019, for people who will
Oh,
be
yeah,
watching
might-
this in the
Yeah,
future.
might be, yeah.
That what do you hope you hope to gain awareness, but how will you do you think you're going to recreate this at other schools and other places, or are you going to do this continuously? Like, what do you hope to do and gain in the future from doing that?
Yeah, so I do hope that this can be something that I can carry on. And I've actually had 2 artists from London who said, they're interested in taking part here.
Okay, that's cool.
So initially, this starting event is happening at Luton Sixth Form College,
Mhm.
and that's somewhere where I'm actually a member of staff there at the moment. And they happily said, they can host the event. But the aim is in future, if I can secure funding,
Mhm.
this event actually is like, I haven't done it in that sense where I've got funding to do it at like a major venue, that kind of thing. But it's, if I can do that in future, to be able to do that in other schools, do it in large venues, there's loads of possibilities, and to do it not just in Luton,
Mhm.
do it in other cities, towns as well, and then celebrate their local artists at the same time.
Yeah, that'd be
'Cause I
really
find
cool.
that really important.
100%. I see that as
Yeah.
well. I've noticed that a lot of local artists go unrecognized
Yeah.
by the town. I've spoken
Yeah,
True.
there's a lot of
a lot of local artists that go unrecognized. Why is it that people? Why, one thing I don't understand is, not if knife crime is a town area problem, why is it that schools and colleges don't come together to tackle this on a large scale? Like, why Luton Sixth Form College or yourself go to Sixth Form Cardinal Newman or the Sixth Form. How many other Sixth Forms are there? Like Barnfield South Sixth Form, or that's called the Learning Trust Academy, isn't it? I don't know. But anyways, it's cool. Yeah. So how come these colleges don't get together and like try and tackle this knife crime, do one big event? Like, what stops that? Why do you think
this event is actually open to public?
Okay.
So it is open to everybody. It's not just like for just specific set of students. It is actually open for everyone. So anyone from Luton who wants to get involved, and you don't just have to be a young person. Like I said, it's ideally their parents as well. And then, you know, whether it's organizations, just everybody really. But the main focus obviously was young people. But it's open to anyone from any school, any college. So it's not just something, you know, specific to a particular school or college.
So what can we as young people do to help sort of with this campaign and get it more out there and sort of work towards the solutions that you've mapped out?
So at the moment, in terms of solutions, that's what obviously what I want to hear at the event. So, you know, firstly come to the event. If anyone wants to help volunteer, obviously, you know, you can volunteer for it. If anyone who knows, you know, wants to do art for it or wants to perform, please do get in touch. My social media is at contact Haleema, and that's HALEEMA. And yeah, if, you know, just come have the discussions as well. And get involved with the social media campaign. So again, like I said, hashtag 22SecondsToMurder, and post either a video or a written piece. And the challenge is, see if you can do a video within the space of 22 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did have a friend who managed that. Or if you want to write something, try and do it within 22 words.
Oh.
So yeah, that's the challenge.
22 words?
It's feasible.
Mad. Fair play. Man, so, Massam, what are your thoughts on knife crime, man? How do you feel like knife crime affects you as a young person? How does it affect you? How do you feel?
I'm like the most sheltered young boy ever. I don't get involved in knife crime.
Okay,
I'm a good boy.
He's a good boy. Okay, what about people who that you know that have been affected by it? What do your friends see that?
Yeah, see that.
You got friends. Not just me. I acknowledge that you have other people that love you. Okay.
My mum.
No, go on.
So let's see. Do I know anything about knife crime? Because I would say my friends are also quite, not necessarily sheltered, but just sort of.
But can I just say something? Like, I find when people have that sort of mentality, like especially when I've been trying to speak to people, you know, say, do you want to be involved or do you want to attend? Oh, miss, I'm in a different kind of crowd.
Okay.
You know, or
let's talk about this.
Yeah.
This seems really the crowd.
The crowd, or they're not the kind of people I hang out with, or I would never. That would never happen to me. And then if you speak to parents, my kids aren't like that. Like they don't hang out with people like that.
Then why is there an increase in knife crime then?
This is the thing. Like even though you're saying like you don't hang out with people like that, like let's say if you were walking down the street and something happened. It could be, you know, like someone gave you a dirty look, or somebody started, you know, aggravating you in any way. You know,
that gets me happy.
Does it? You know, maybe you can keep yourself calm, but there's always that sort of situation where something might go out of hand.
I mean, I've been in situations where I fear for my life.
Really?
As in, if I'm walking down an alleyway, so actually to get to Inspire, I have to walk down that alleyway near like Ivy Road and Beach Road and all that. And so I always think that someone's going to stab me from the back. I always like have an escape strategy as well.
What's your
escape strategy?
What I basically do is I always make sure to look at the shadows, because the lights they have my shadow in front, so I can see any sort of running shadows behind me.
Okay.
Come to me from before, and then if that happens, you know, I'd know to first of all run forward and then run to the wall, and that way my back is now secure, so that I can't get hurt, and then sort of just learn to rest. You know how to sort of. So you'd win the assailant through the gut punch, and then sort of just like wrest the blade out of their hand, and then sort of just run away. Because the whole point of when you're in a situation, this is actually really good advice to everyone. Don't fight. You don't need to be a hero. The best thing to do is run away and call the police, because that's the most safe thing to do. Even top class fighters would always recommend running away, because to get into the fight means that you're jeopardizing your life and you're jeopardizing theirs. So just try to leave that situation with the least amount of harm done. But so that's what my thing would do. And I think what you're trying to say is a lot of people would act like they don't hang out with those people and they don't want to associate themselves with that sort of type of crowd. But that's the difference is I have I'm concerned about knife crime, and I definitely want to help the people who are involved with it. I myself have not been involved with it. I don't know anyone who has, or not off the top of my head. I mean, I know friends of friends, and that's sort of too far apart for me to have any opinion on because they're their own individual. But I do get what you mean, like how parents and friends would. It's the sort of things. Oh, that'll never happen to me
Until it does.
Yeah, until it does. And I think the whole point is that they will never be the perpetrator of a knife crime, but they might be the victim, and they still should take the advice of self-protection, self-defense, learning martial arts, being aware of your surroundings, and always trying to be safe. So, like, I know a lot of guys who just walk around at 2 a.m. by themselves, and like I can get why they do that, but they need to understand the implications of what that might mean for their health. And
Wait, what's wrong with them walking around 2 a.m. by themselves if they needed to get somewhere?
do you? Because that increases the likelihood of you being around people who might be able to stab you.
Do you know what? I think that's false. Personally,
I think most crimes happen.
See, I've walked late at night once.
I mean,
before,
yeah.
and like
obviously, there's exceptions to the rules, but in general, the stats.
I think it depends on like if you're in a heavily populated area as well.
Of course.
So, I don't think it would happen if you're like near like woods where there's like less people. I don't think that's gonna happen necessarily. But I feel like it's.
Well, I live near Bury Park.
Okay, so okay, I see that. I wouldn't suggest walking around in town 2 a.m. in the morning. That would be dangerous.
I guess you guys are lucky in the sense that you're boys, and
Okay,
when it comes to women walking alone,
do you think
when it's dark, then there's loads of other issues with that.
Yeah.
Okay, fair play.
They won't feel safe, and it is a problem that you see on like there's social media campaigns obviously now with like the Me Too movement and so on. I know this is nothing to do with knife crime, but when it comes to like feeling safe, you see like things like I wanted a long nighttime stroll, and then I remembered I'm a woman.
Okay.
It was like a tweet or something that was going around.
Yeah. I would still sort of recommend, like, whether you're a man or a woman, don't go out at 2 a.m. in the night because it's just not safe for anyone. And I do think men have this sort of have more confidence, and that's why they do it more. But I still think they shouldn't do that because it's still putting their life in danger. And so I would just recommend to neither of them do it. Or if you're in a heavily secured area, then go for it. Because I know places in like Egypt, or if you're quite rich and you have a lot of security, then you can. But that's all this is all just sort of tangent stuff. But we're wrapping it up now because we've hit the 45-minute mark.
Whoa!
Has it been already?
Yeah, it's quite
crazy.
quick. So thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed that discussion. We got quite a few solutions. So knowing to mentor, having role models in your life will definitely sort of give you something to aspire to, and it'll probably give you more respect for yourself and not want to put yourself in situations where you can jeopardize your life or others. We also talked about sort of expressing the art and how you feel about the issue and making it aware to as many people as possible. If you want to help and sort of know more, you can check Haleema out. Is it your Instagram at Contact Haleema?
At Contact Haleema, yeah.
At Contact Haleema. We'll have that in the description as well. If you want to get involved with sort of volunteering for the knife crime campaign. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Today it went really quickly, man.
Yeah, so
it went really quick. Wasn't expecting that.
Do we have anything else? Oh, remember to follow us on Inspire FM Luton, and give us an email if you want to be involved with the show at Cuppa Tea at inspirefm.org. Am I missing anything?
Send in solution, guys. Like if there's send us ideas that you have. Definitely send us an ideas we have. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
I always say that. Have a lovely